Hello everyone, this is your friendly neighborhood Toxic Rain addict here, back with another Toxic Rain video. And so today I wanted to share this build guide concept that I've been working on for a couple days now, and this is a Ghost Dance Toxic Rain Occultist. So as you guys probably know, I am absolutely obsessed with Toxic Rain Occultist. I think it's great. I've played it the last couple leagues, and I just wanted to share my opinions on how the build is holding up in 3.16. So here I put together a level 96 POB. As you can see here, I was able to get 2.5 million DPS, and we got 5k life, 5.7k life here with 168 from the tree, which I think is pretty good. And we have a reasonably high level of evasion as well, which should be higher because Grace has recently been buffed to give 20% more evasion, which is not in POB yet. But yeah, so let me just explain how this build works. So here I have my POB configured with 4 overlapping pods and 15 Wither Stacks Shaper DPS. And we are using a 6-link Toxic Rain here with no quality or anything, level 20 Toxic Rain. And the items are just pretty generic items that are easily achievable in SSF. You have your +3 bow, and then you have, dot multi on your gear, -9 from the hunter helmet, and just a bunch of very ordinary items here. And okay, yeah, so let me explain the concept of this build. So the offense part of this build is pretty straightforward. We're going to be an occultist. So we have a lot of damage from Void Beacon, Withering Presence, and basically in mapping, we're just going to shoot Toxic Rain and Profane Bloom is going to kill everything. And then we are going to be running a Blasphemy Aura with Temp Chains, which will allow us to trigger Profane Bloom to explode everything in maps. And then we're going to be able to ramp up Wither Stacks on the boss and take that down quickly as well. And yeah, not much to talk about there. It's just Toxic Rain, but the interesting thing about this build is the defense, in my opinion. So the main thing that happened in 3.16 to Toxic Rain, I think, or like for this version of Toxic Rain, is like they moved Ghost Dance out of Trickster Ascendancy and they just moved it into the skill tree. So if you don't know what Ghost Dance does, this notable, it allows you to gain up to 3 Ghost Shrouds, and every time you get hit, you lose a Ghost Shroud to recover energy shield equal to 3% of your evasion rating. And with this build, we are able to fit in a Grace Aura, which is it's pretty good. It gives you a huge amount of flat evasion and also 20% more, which is not updated in POB yet. And we also try to get evasion on the gear. So with that, in addition to all the evasion nodes that we take, we can get like 16,000, 20,000 evasion, which comes out to be like somewhere around 60% chance to dodge, 60% chance to evade attacks in a tier 16 map, which is pretty good. And if you take 20,000 and you get 3% of that, well, 1% of 20,000 is 200, so 3% is 600. So basically every time we get hit, we recover 600 ES. And with this build, taking nodes like melding, we're able to gain a lot of ES. So we have like 500, 600 ES, right? So every time we get hit, we gain basically 600 EHP. And that's on top of a steel skin that we're going to run, CWDT steel skin. So as you can see, we have like a lot of mitigation from this. We have like pretty good mitigation against, 2 shots and 3 shots and just a bunch of damage spam. And we also have a pretty high amount of evasion to like dodge attacks. So I think this is going to be pretty good. And then on top of that, we have a Temporal Chains Blasphemy, which is basically going to slow everybody down in a range around us. So we'll basically get hit very not frequently, which will allow us to have a lot of Ghost Shroud stacks up. And then of course we have a little bit of defense from the Ascendancy as well. We have Withering Presence giving Chaos Res. We got Malediction giving nearby enemies deal 10% reduced damage if they're cursed. And of course they will be cursed because of our Blasphemy. So that's pretty cool. And I think this build has pretty good offense, as you can see, with 2.5 million Shaper DPS with very ordinary gear. And it has very good evasion, and it has Ghost Shrouds. So this is basically the build that I was able to come up with. This is the skill tree that I ended up coming up with, and see if I can explain this for a little bit. So the most important things about this skill tree are these mana reservation clusters. So they changed mana reservation to mana reservation efficiency, which is the same thing, just with a different name. But basically, these two clusters here, this influence cluster and this charisma cluster, are what carries this build. So from these two clusters and these two masteries giving 15% mana reservation efficiency, and auras have 15% increased effect, we can basically have a very, very optimized aura setup. We have Malevolence giving us a lot of damage. We have Blasphemy Temp Chains to make the enemies slow, and also to trigger Profane Bloom and Malediction. We have a Clarity to help with our mana regen, which, as you can see, is pretty tight, but it does sustain. And then we have a Val Grace, which gives us a shit ton of evasion, and also gives us a button to press when things get, pretty intense. And basically, we can fit all of these auras at the same time with these new mana reservation efficiency clusters here, which is really good. And then we also want to run a Skitter Bots, and in bosses we can take off Blasphemy and put on Skitter Bots to get like 10% more damage in addition to a slowing effect from the chill. So that's pretty good, and we can fit in all these auras. And this was something that you couldn't do before, but this is really important because being able to fit in the additional grace allows us to take advantage of Ghost Dance, which provides us with a pretty good method of defense. Every time you get hit, you get 600 ES, right? So that's basically the main idea of this skill tree. And then everything else is just taking, your damage nodes here, chaos damage nodes, life nodes, bow damage nodes, attack speed, and you know what I'm saying, right? So yeah, that's pretty much the POB. It's pretty straightforward. This is basically the most optimized POB that I was able to come up with. I was also able to put together a one cluster setup here. It's basically the same thing. We just remove all the stuff down here and we change that into a cluster here. And then since we lost mana flows, we're then going to take Mind Drinker here for a little bit more mana sustain along with the mastery. So that's what I came up with. And as you can see, the damage goes up from 2.5 to 2.9. So you get like a pretty decent amount of damage boost. It's like 15% more damage with a cluster. This is a 8 notable chaos, and then these are just 4 or 5 notable chaos Dal multi. And you do have to sacrifice 10% life, but I think it's okay to sacrifice 10% life to get 15% more damage, at least in softcore. Another thing I want to talk about with the cluster setup is because of this node here, Blood Drinker, we're able to recover 2% of life on kill, which is like super overpowered. And so like because of this node alone, we don't need to run Brush with Death anymore. Like if you have the ability to get Brush with Death, I would still say get it because it's good. But previously, like in order to run things like damage on full life, you previously needed to have either a Cinder Swallow or Brush with Death, or you had to play Trickster. Otherwise, you just wouldn't be able to proc damage on full life consistently. But now, like because of Blood Drinker giving life on kill, you no longer need to run small clusters with Brush with Death. So you can just put like a jewel here. I just put like a 7% max life and then damage over time jewel. And it's like really efficient and it's really good. So this is like the cluster setup that I was able to come up with. If you have the ability to get one cluster going on, I would recommend it. But definitely not necessary for the build to be good. Other than that, I guess to quickly go over the masteries, a lot of it is pretty straightforward. Basically, you have the reservation efficiency one, giving 15% increased reservation efficiency of mana. It's pretty good. And then you have this auras have 15% increased effect, which is also really good. Gives you more damage from Malevolence, more mana sustain from Clarity. Gives you also like a little bit more evasion from Grace. So that's really good. And then other than that, it's just like generic damage. We have damage over time mastery giving skill effect duration. We got Chaos Mastery, increase effective withered. We have a Life Mastery, 10% increase max life. And then a little bit of flat life here. We have an interesting Bow Mastery here. This one gives 8% movement speed while phasing, and also 20% chance to gain phasing on kill. And 20% is actually a pretty high chance to get phasing on kill. So like, because of this mastery alone, I feel like we don't need to run a Quartz Flask anymore. So I just replaced the Quartz Flask in this build with like an Iron Flask with like a little bit of ward. I just thought that would be a good idea. Because like the Quartz Flask, if you don't need phasing and you don't really need dodge anymore, it's like kind of pointless to run, right? So I think this is a pretty cool mastery, the phasing one. And then we have this Evasion Mastery giving Grace mana reservation efficiency, helps us to fit the auras in. And then we finally have one here giving increased damage with a bow and a totem, which is basically the Wither totem and your bow. So it's pretty simple stuff. I think this build's going to be like really good. I think this build's going to be like very fun to play. You're going to run around and you're going to explode everything with Profane Bloom, and you're not going to take any damage between the Temporal Chains Blasphemy and the Ghost Dance and the very high evasion. I think it's going to be really good. I'm really excited to play this build. I will be league starting with this, and yeah, I think it's going to be a really good league. I also do want to point out one more thing though. So like, as you can see here, like the starting area for this build is absolutely gimped, right? Like, look at this. This is so screwed. You have to waste all these skill points just to go over here. So like, I would not recommend like league starting with this. I mean, like, I do recommend league starting with this, but I would not recommend leveling with this, if that makes sense. So like, I put together a very, very basic Bane POB here. This is Occultist, Bane, Blight, and I think this is like the league start thing that you want to do if you want to play Toxic Rain Occultist. So basically, to go over this really quick, this is just your typical Bane Blight setup. This is my POB that I made myself, but there's like tons of guides out there, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but the basic idea is you just level with Bane and Blight, and you just put a Bane on somebody, and then you use Blight to drain their health, and you just build into chaos damage and like Hexmaster and stuff. So that's basically what I'm gonna do for like league start. I have this idea to like, I want to use Freezing Pulse and Frostbomb to level until like level 10, and then at level 10 I want to like drop Freezing Pulse and replace it with like a 3-link Blight. And then I want to level with Frostbomb Blight until I get Hexmaster. And once I get Hexmaster, I want to then transition into using Bane. So like I use Bane to clear, and then I use Blight to kill like the stronger monsters or bosses. And I basically want to use Bane and Blight together all the way until I'm like level, I don't know, 70 or 80 or something. And then I would say like once you're level 70 or 80, you can transition into Toxic Rain. This POB is level 93 with literally the worst gear in the world. I don't even have any damage on anything, and I have like a staff with like 1 mod. So this is like the worst POB ever. But as you can see, like Bane and Blight together, it does 1 million DPS with no items, assuming like a very basic 6-link. But yeah, I think it'll be totally fine. I would definitely not recommend playing this like for super long, because the damage of this build falls off pretty heavily. But like, I would say to get through campaign and to get through early maps, I would say this build is really good. Again, don't want to go too deep into it, but yeah, I would recommend if you want to play Toxic Rain Occultist, just level with like Occultist Bane. And then once you get like level 70, 80, then you are able to respec into this build. The main thing with respecing into this build is you got to get these 2 clusters here. You got to get these 2 mana reservation efficiency clusters, and then this one here to get Grace efficiency, and then you got to get Ghost Dance. So like, you need all these things to like start playing this build. That's why I wouldn't recommend league starting with it. But I think like once you get this build going, it's going to be like super good. Like, I wouldn't say it's going to be like OP, but I think it's going to be really solid to play. And like, this POB has like no inflated numbers or anything. We got Shaper DPS, 4 pods. All of our gems are level 20 with no quality or anything. We don't even have a level 21 Toxic Rain in this POB. We don't even have Empower. So this is like a very honest POB in my opinion. And as you can see, the life total is very good. The evasion total is good. The damage is decent. Everything is obtainable in SSF for gear and gems. And you have Ghost Dance providing you with an interesting new defense layer for Occultist. So yeah, that's basically my Ghost Dance Toxic Rain Occultist build. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed my ramblings on Toxic Rain as I seem to be doing every league. And yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this, because this is all just like tentative, right? This is like the most efficient POB I was able to come up with, but you know, obviously the league has not started yet, so I haven't tested any of this. But from my experience playing this build in previous leagues and from what the POB seems to be doing and showing, I think this build's going to be a banger and I'm going to be playing it. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. You know, let me know what you think. Any thoughts, comments, you know, they're all appreciated. And I think that's it. Yeah, see you guys later.